Okay, these are the steps realistically to set up your first program within Netbeans. Okay, so when you open up Netbeans, you should see something similar to the screen. Okay, all your menu options there and your main pane here. Okay, so if you go to File and if you go to New Project, you should see this dialog box. Okay, you should see this dialog box appearing, and there we should see then that the dialog box is appearing. And what we need to do is select Java, but also Java application. Okay, it's the default selection, but just in case. So click on Next. Now our project name for the first few weeks will obviously be our program name. We will come to a certain point in the next few weeks where we will be building projects that will have more than one program stroke class in them. But for now, it's a simple enough situation where one project, one program. Okay, so first program, first class, we call it first class. Okay, and 1 to 15 SUM, and one of the best things then to do is give 14062018, the date of creation. Okay, so click on Finish there, and what you should see is something similar to this: your project and obviously the name itself. Now if you want to, okay, there is a quick way of actually, if you have trouble viewing this at this size here, you can obviously go to Tools, Options, and what was I going to say, under, I think it's under Fonts and Colors. Yes, under Fonts and Colors, that obviously if you wanted to change, what was I going to say, any of the settings here, you can. Okay, and we'll go through those obviously in one point in time later, but for the moment, okay, you can set the, what was I going to say, the settings of this here. Just check here something there. Default. So if you wanted to increase the font size and so forth like that, you could increase it here. Okay, and if I click on there, it is increased, and if I apply, it's done across there. Click apply and okay. You can see the font is increased there. Okay, you can obviously do the same for the output here, but we'll just deal with what we have here. Right. The main important elements is this. Okay, this section here is just comments. Okay, comments are essentially either code that has been commented out because it's not needed, or it's a statement that the writer of the code needs other writers to take view of. The second lot here is some other comments that basically will be done for Java docs, which we might look at later. Then you have your class, and that is starts here and ends here. So what we can do, a good practice to get into it at the very start, is mark that. The important element that we need to look at it for in terms of our code at the moment is the main method. And what basically this stands for is that this is the default place where any project will start from. So your project must include at least one main method, and realistically only one. Okay, so it's within this confines here. Now obviously I can press return and create more space, but it was within these confines that I place my code. Okay, so what I'll do here actually is on line 18, okay, and as it says here, to do code application logic here, in other words, put your code in here. So what I'm going to do is put in code there, and I'm going to put in the code that basically answered our question about summing up the odd numbers between 1 and 15 exclusively. In other words, do not select 1 and do not select 15. Okay, so the way we had it worked out was that we needed two variables, one being a counter variable, in other words allows us to go from 0 to 15 or 1 to 15 or whatever, and the other one being a sum variable. Well, not a sum variable, but a variable that will basically sum up the numbers, the odd numbers. Okay, sum is equal to 0. Now, line 18 basically is stating that I have created two variables, one a counter and one called counter and one called sum. Both variables are of type int, in other words integer, in other words full number. Both variables have been set with initial value of 0, or in other words initialized at 0. So that's their initial value. In other words, when the program starts, that will be their initial value. Okay, so if we wanted to, we could print out the values of the variables. Okay, and I'll just print out the value of counter for the moment, and I'll go through this actual line when we do it for sum, the line underneath it, and explain what actually is happening. Okay, but in order to run the program, the best thing to actually do is obviously number one, file, save your program, and then we have three icons here. We have got build project, clean and build project, and run project. Build project basically compiles your project. Clean and build project is when you may have databases and other peripheral software connected to your project, and you need to clean the associated buffers. Run the project is obviously run the logic of itself. So if I built it, this is the important point down here. Build successful. Okay, so it's basically saying here that the build itself was successful. There's no logical problems with it and so forth like that. So what I will actually do is just run it. Okay, we got a value here of 0. Is this right? Is this wrong? We just go through it. Okay, it's printing out counter. So what we have to ask ourselves is this, is what is the value of counter? And counter's value of 0. Okay, did we print out sum? No, we did not. Did we change the value of counter? No, we did not. Okay, so if I wanted to print out the value of sum, what I would do is as follows. System is basically a library of classes. Okay, there are internal classes. So if I click on dot, known as the dot operator, it gives me a list of those classes. And you can see here there's there's in, and there's out. And obviously the one we want to know is out. Now, there's no two ways about it. You have to learn off some of the important functions, the default functions. But if I click on out, and then use the dot operator again, it gives me the list of functions, or as they are known in Java, methods, that I can call up for system.out. And the one that I want to call up is println. Okay? Now, if I go to println, okay, you can see there's a whole list of them there. But basically, the importance of this is that you can see there's a whole list of them. But what is important here is that if I click on println, it gives me the option to print ln. Now, what ln stands for is new line. So what it does here is it prints whatever is within these brackets on a line, and then it moves to a new line. So if I click on sum, or not click on sum, but if I type in sum, and if I save again, Control S, build, clean and build, okay, you can do that, build successful. And if I run that, okay, 0, 0, which is actually right. Counter and sum are 0, 0. So what we need to do now is set up a for loop that will basically allow us to go from 0 to 15 for the moment, and then we can not worry, but what we can do then is augment that loop to actually find the odd numbers, and then at a certain point sum those odd numbers up. But before we do that, I just want to mark one thing here is end of main. Okay? You don't need to do that, but it's a good practice to get into, because obviously the brackets are the boundaries of certain points, and it's a good thing to know that. Obviously, as your code gets more and more complex, we need to put in more comments. Okay, so what we need to do is set up a looping technique that will go through from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And we just print that for a moment. Okay, so if I said for counter, okay, now what I could do is say for counter is equal to 0, and then have an if statement within the for loop that only prints out from 2 upwards. But what I can just as do is this: for counter is equal to 2, counter is less than 15, counter plus plus. Now, if I put the brackets, one bracket there, and the closing bracket down here, you can see there that my for loop goes from line 20 to line 23. Okay? What's important here though is these 3 parameters. Just quickly what it's actually saying here. For counter is equal to 2. So that's saying the initial state of counter, even though it's set to 0 here, now I need it to be setting to 2. Okay? Then counter is going to be less than 15. So this loop will keep on going between 2 and 15. It won't reach 15 because it's less than. So 14 is less than 15. It won't get to 15. Counter plus plus. Now we will be going through these, but this is basically saying every time you come around here again, increment counter by 1. Okay, so what we need to do is find out is what's the values of counter. Okay, now in order to do that, I don't need sum at the moment. Okay, I don't need sum at the moment, so I'm just going to comment that out. Okay, and also I'm going to augment something here to print out by putting in a bit of text. The value of counter is. Now, if you have normal text, what you can do is have it enclosed within what was it going to say, punctuation marks. But then if you need to print a variable, make sure that there is a plus sign before that variable. Supposing you need to actually add in more text after that variable, you can do so in this manner. Now I'm just putting in 3 dots. Okay, just to highlight the point. Now, I'll save this. I'll clean and build, and I'll run it. Okay, and we can see down here at the bottom that our loop, the value of the counter is 2, 3, 4, all the way down, and it's 14. Okay, now what we need to do now is put in an if statement or some kind of statement that will basically say I only want to see the odd numbers. So if, and within the brackets, the normal brackets here, is we're putting in our criteria. Okay, so if counter, if the value of counter, okay, right, if counter modulus 2 is equal to 1, okay, and I'll place brackets here. I'll just go back through that anyway in a few seconds. But just to explain here, on line 21 I have an if starting and finishing within the for loop. And I'll just do quickly here. Right. Basically what this line here states is as follows. If counter modulus 2 is equal to 1. So basically, if you divide whatever value counter is, okay, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and if you modulus, use this, what this basically gives is that if I divide counter by 2, and if I have a remainder, in other words, the only remainder that you can get if you divide by 2 is 1, and if that remainder is equal to 1, print out the value of the counter. Okay, so this will either give us the odd or the even. Chances are it will give us the odd. Okay, there's obviously the logic behind that, but we can change it about. But let's put it this way: if we clean and build, and we run 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. Okay, so that's basically saying if the value of the counter at that point in time is odd, print it out. Okay, now let's just say if we wanted the even numbers, we would put in exclamation marks equals to this point here, and it says not equal to 1. So if I clean and build, if I run, lo and behold, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. But what we need is obviously the odd values. Okay, so we go through this again. Okay, system out print 9 and so forth like that. And if we run that, okay, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13. Right, so that gives us the odd numbers. Now what I'm going to do afterwards is that what I will do in the next video is develop on this and actually put in a basis of actually how do we actually sum up our numbers. Okay, so for now, okay, try working with this piece of code, the one that I would place on the website, and we will look through the next set of numbers at that point in time. Okay, so I'll just